Today I'm going to be sharing with you a simple hack that will save years off the life of your paintbrush. If you have brushes that are overly used and abused, maybe your kids got a hold of them and left paint on them, maybe you fell asleep and forgot to wash your brushes out, or maybe you're using them at paint parties and your customers have been not rinsing them out very well. There's lots of reasons why your brushes can become really gunked up and just nasty, or maybe you really are trying to take care of them. You've been doing your best, but there are just certain types of brushes, for instance, filbert tip brushes, that always tend to get paint gunked up near the ferrule of the brush. Let's talk about the parts of the brush real quick before we get started. You've got the handle. The metal piece is called the ferrule, and then you've got the bristles. So right up here, this one's in really great shape, but right up here near the tip of the ferrule, sometimes this can get really stiff because paint will get in there where it's really, really tight and it's hard to get it out. I've gotten a lot better at taking care of my brushes over years, so these paint brushes are in really great shape. But there were many years where I taught paint parties where we would just rinse those brushes out, toss them in a bucket, and move on and get ready to go home and clean up after the party. And I never really did deep clean those brushes. So I pulled some brushes out of the box that had been really stiff, like they had gotten lots of acrylic paint buildup in them. They hadn't been rinsed out very well, and some of them I couldn't even bend the bristles on. So I'm going to take these and revive them today. I started out with Jack's linseed soap. I mixed some of it with some water, and this soap is really, really thick. You do not need a lot of water. On the container it says to dilute it 50-50 with water. So I took just maybe a half an inch of water in my little jar. I added a little glob of the linseed soap, and I tried stirring it around, but it wasn't mixing very well. So I had the bright idea to pop it in the microwave for about 30 seconds. It really softens up that studio soap and lets it get really thin. And then I stirred it around with a palette knife in the jar before dropping my brushes in the jar. Now they've been sitting for a couple of hours in this jar. As you can see, the water in the bottom has changed colors, and I'm going to demonstrate now what to do next with how to clean these once you've had them soaking. If your brushes are really bad, you might need to let them soak overnight. But notice something, this jar is not very full. You really only need it to be full enough to cover the bristles at the bottom of your brush. You do not want it to be full enough that it's going above the ferrule of the brush and getting the wooden handles of your brushes wet. That will ruin your brushes. Also, if you're leaving your brushes in water overnight and that is happening, that's why your brushes aren't lasting. The wood is soaking up that water, causing it to expand, causing the paint on your brush handles to crackle, and it just overall will not help your brushes to last. Okay, let's begin with a couple of the ones that weren't very bad. This one, my daughter had left it with paint on it and just left it on the counter to dry, so it literally had a coat of red acrylic paint on it. I'm just going to take it and put it in some clean water. This is a little makeup brush scrubber, and I can instantly see the little flecks of paint starting to flake away from those bristles. Pull it out, see how it looks. That is just about as good as new. Wow, all of that paint came right off. If you have some bristles that are fraying, you can dip your brushes in boiling water for about 5 seconds and then pull them out, and those bristles will come back out like they were from the factory. Let's try another one. Some of these I may have to leave soaking overnight. This was one that I couldn't even bend the tips of the bristles initially. So I'm going to put this, actually, let's take this little makeup scrubber out of the water. I'm going to put it right here on my counter and show you. Look how much paint is coming. I didn't even know there was blue paint in this brush. But that Jack's Studio soap did a good job of dissolving and breaking this up. I think this brush is probably going to need another soaking after this, but this is a good initial soaking. And then I'm going to rinse in here. Okay, we're making progress. I can at least bend the bristles of that brush. I don't think it's as clean as it could be. I think there's probably still paint gunked up deep in there. Oh yeah, once you bend it apart really far, you can actually see that blue paint that's down in there that is still stiff. I'm going to set it aside so that way I don't get it mixed up with the other ones. Let's work on a couple more. Let me rinse this off. Paper towel's handy. Sometimes I feel like it can be helpful to scrub it on a flat surface like this or at the bottom of your sink and then dip back in the Studio soap mixture and come back over and just keep working it in. And it's kind of like shampooing your hair. You got to get it down to the root. You really need to work it in so that it's continuing to break up all the way down in there. Now, something that you might need to do, this is my secret weapon when it comes to cleaning out paintbrushes. This is a lice removal comb. This is the Knit-Free Terminator. I feel like it should be called the Knit-Free Terminator 2000 or something like that. But this has really close teeth that you're going to be able to put on your brush. You're going to wiggle it. It's going to take some work, but you're going to wiggle, wiggle, wiggle. You could even put it against the desk here. Wiggle it down in there, and then just start pulling those bristles toward the end. And I'm pretty much just brushing the hairs, and it's breaking up the resins in the paint that have gotten really deep down in there. And that's really helpful when you start to get that buildup down toward the ferrule of the brush. You can use this to really break it up and comb it through, and it loosens all of that up. Now, I might need to do that also to this brush that I set aside a moment ago and really get it in there. Get some water on it. Get it in there so that it can start breaking up the resins in that paint. I'm still going to let this one soak overnight, but by doing this, the water will be able to penetrate that much easier once you've got the bristles kind of separated. Okay, that one's going to go back in. This is the one I just did. It's going to go back in. Woo, this one was in really bad shape too. Scrub, scrub, scrub. Once I've got it kind of loosened up, I'm going to take my little lice comb and just start brushing the hairs. Wow, I'm getting so much more flexibility out of these bristles than I did before. Keep working it through. If you see that you've got like paint residue buildup right there near the ferrule, try to work down into it and just kind of comb it out. And then you're probably, if it's still there, you're probably going to need to let your brush soak a little bit more and then scrub it again. Here's another one. This is a larger brush. This one was in really bad shape too. It was so stiff that you couldn't flex the bristles. Oh wow, you can see. I see red paint or something coming out of it. Or brown maybe. Woo! Splattering and making a big old mess here in my craft room. Ideally, you want to do this over a sink, but I knew this would be easier to film here in the craft room, so I just brought a basin of water in here. But this is how you save your brushes. If you've got brushes that are in really bad shape, don't throw them out. Soak them in this Linseed Studio soap overnight. Scrub them on your little makeup scrubber, and then just sit and work that lice comb through the bristles. Try to get it all the way through, but this will help you get really close to that ferrule to break up the resins in that paint. Be sure and flip your brush over, do it from both sides, and then rinse your brush. You can see the watercolor changing. That brush is, I wouldn't say good as new, but it's way better than it was before. I could not do this before. I could not bend it like this. I could barely flex it at all. It was so stiff. If you feel like you're still getting paint out of it, like I feel like it's still dirtying up my paper towel, you could continue to soak it and clean these over and over again until you really feel like they are good as new again. Here's an example of one that has just been used over and over again. I used this one a lot for many years doing hand lettering and stuff like that because it's nice and small. And it just over the years, the paint just started to build up near the ferrule of that brush. I can tell I use it for hand lettering a lot because black paint is coming out of it. And black is the color I use the most for hand lettering. And so it just started to build up over time, and it got to where it just, a simple rinse would not do it. You really had to like scrub it out. Let's see if we can revive this with the lice comb and the scrubber. Just gonna keep breaking that up near the ferrule. Lift that lice comb in there. Dip it in the Studio soap and give it another scrub. Sometimes you may have to repeat this process 2 or 3 times and let them soak overnight each time to really get all of it out. But you should see progress each time. I still see that there is some that I could still get out from between those bristles, but I think that is definitely progress. I'm going to let this one soak some more. Well, hopefully today I've helped you to save some of your brushes from being thrown in the trash and helped save you a little bit of money too. Come back next time, we'll paint something together, or I'll share more door hanger painting tips with you. Be sure to hit the like and subscribe button to learn more about painting tips, door hanger painting, and crafting on a budget. See you next time.